Tips for presentations. Writing for reading. Whether it's a PowerPoint presentation or a news podcast or something else, text may need to be converted from written form into verbal phrasing. What do I mean by written versus verbal phrasing? A news release might say something like, blah, 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 he said. The quote might go on for a whole paragraph with, he said at the end. That's how it would look in print as in a newspaper because that's what it was mainly written for. Perfectly good for print media, no problem. A broadcast or podcast report taken from that news release will need to be turned around for natural speech. It might start with, speaking earlier today, so-and-so said, blah, 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 and then he went on to explain, blah, 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 and so on. At the same time, long sentences might need to be broken into smaller pieces so that the viewer or listener can take in the information in bite-sized chunks. Written on a teleprompter, there might be extra commas added so the reader knows how to deliver those chunks. In some cases, I've even gone to the extent of adding slash marks between natural phrases, and italics or bold text on words that need emphasis in the delivery. Make the reading sound more natural and less robotic. Let me show you what I mean. Here's an example of a news release written for print. Notice where the source identification is at the end. That's the way we're used to seeing things in print, but when you read it out loud, it doesn't seem natural. Go ahead, read it. Okay, now let's see how we might rewrite that same news item to be spoken out loud. Notice where the source has been moved to the beginning and the long sentence has been divided into two parts. Now let's go a step further and make it easier for a news reporter to read it on a teleprompter. Notice how the bars make it easier to recognize natural phrasing. Now read it out loud. You'll notice in our rewrite for the announcer's copy, we made shorter sentences and added extra punctuation to identify natural verbal phrasing. The result is that, with a short rehearsal, we can sound like a professional. Well, almost. We have a few other things to consider. Like pacing and spacing. We don't want to talk or read too fast, and we need to leave space for the listener to absorb and process what we've been saying. Whether we're presenting PowerPoint or a news podcast, we can enhance that process by putting key points on the screen as we deliver the information. We can make it more interesting by adding pictures and diagrams, perhaps something as simple as an illustration, like this. When you're reading, break up the words into phrases. Vary the inflection and don't be in a rush to deliver the next piece. Avoid using the same inflection for the whole thing. Add natural pauses between paragraphs or different topics. Let's practice that news report again. Go ahead, you're on. Okay, how'd you do? The U.S. Attorney's Office announced Wednesday that 3 men pleaded guilty to creating a powerful computer network used to crash websites last year. The guilty plea came Friday in testimony in federal court in Alaska. Now grab a technical manual, a magazine article, or anything else that's written for print and practice rewriting it into something people can understand. And more important, that you can deliver effectively, reading without sounding like you're reading. Record it a few times and play it back. Look for the problems and practice it again. I promise, you'll quickly hear a big difference. I hope that helps. Okay, ready? 3, 2,